perspective shape how we view the world, but it shapes how we make decisions in our lives. And bang for your buck wise, I think the best way to get a nice dose of perspective is to travel. So what I'd like to do today is to share with you some perspective that I got on my most recent trip to India by sharing with you a few stories. Now, some of you may know that I actually went to India at the end of April, beginning of last May, for my wife's cousin's wedding. And a lot of different things happened, namely 3 particular things that I want to share with you. The first is the story of Jugaad. Now, you may remember a few weeks ago I had the word of the day, I was grammarian, and I chose the word Jugaad. The literal translation of this word is makeshift, right? That's how we would say it. Or to do whatever is necessary to make things work. Now, working with a lot of Indians, being married to an Indian, I've heard this word over time from her family and others, but I've never really fully understood it until this particular trip. Me and my wife arrive in New Delhi. We meet the rest of her family. There was 12 of us in total. And we were all going to stay in this one particular flat in New Delhi. It's a wedding, so we all like to stay together. It's a lot of fun. You get home late for the event, so we like to spend this time together. So we had rented this flat in New Delhi. And when we got in there, all 12 of us walked in, and the first thing we noticed is, well, there's no air conditioning. Now, Indian summer being what it is, average temperature around that time, 102, 104 degrees, 12 people in a small room, air conditioning is going to be pretty important, right? So me and my wife, we do a little bit of research, and we find some guys outside who are renting air conditioners. So we kind of do the money exchange thing and say, oh, can you come install these air conditioners for us? They say, sure. Great. Hour later, they come, they haul in the air conditioners. About an hour later, we have 4 air conditioners surrounding us, right? So the guy goes up and he pushes the button. Nothing. Didn't work at all. No power. So he comes to me and to my wife, speaking in Hindi. I didn't really understand it. But basically what he said is, I don't think this apartment can support 4 air conditioners. But he said, don't worry. I can fix it. He disappears for about a half hour, which was a fruitive attempt, I suppose, to try to correct this. Comes back in, pushes the button, and air conditioning surrounded. We all stand in the middle of the room. Feels great. Not questioning how we corrected it, we paid the man he left. Right? We get ready for the first event of the wedding, which was the women's sangeet, which is a dance sort of thing. We drink, we eat, we dance, we come back to the flat at about 3:30 in the morning. First thing we do is still hot in the room. We push the button on the air conditioner. And what do we hear? All the lights and all the apartments across off. The entire stack, the entire building lost power. And so we're like, well, how long after I pushed the button was it really us that did it? And so it's 3:30 in the morning. There's not much we can do, so we go to bed, right? And first thing, like 7:30 in the morning, bam, 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 the building manager is at the door, and he informs us that the air conditioners that were cooling our room so nicely before they went out was drawing power from the elevator. So the guy who was fixing the air conditioner for us basically got power from the elevator. What that means is anytime anyone calls the elevator when our air conditioner is off, well, the whole building loses power. So we were kind of like, oh, are we going to be in trouble for this? But he's like, don't worry, I can fix it. He's like, I know a guy. And 2 hours later, he comes back in, same thing, pushes the button, we have air conditioning. So I'm the only one in there right now, so I'm trying to communicate with him. Well, what did you do? Did you disconnect the air conditioning from the elevator? He's like, no. He points over there. He's like, see that power line? And I look across the building, and I see this rat's nest of wires hanging all over the place. He's like, see that red wire? And I'm like, following down the roof to the elevator. So what he did is not correct the issue that the air conditioner installer caused. He just found a different way to solve the problem by powering the elevator from some power line across the hall. And so, to me, my perspective as a Westerner and as an American is like, this is not up to code, right? This is not. But in a highly densely populated area like Delhi, where power is a precious resource, from his perspective, it was the only way to get it to work. And so he saw me kind of stunned looking, and he said, well, Jugaad. And that was when I first understood the meaning of that word. It was to do what is necessary. And things that we think of as Westerners as maybe not quite right are what you have to do in certain cases if you want things done. So that was my first perspective changing moment, this particular job. The second has to do with the earthquake that happened in Iran and Pakistan border. I was in Gurgaon, a city just north of Delhi, and I was working from the 12th floor of the Crown Plaza while my wife was actually at work with the India team, who actually is based in Gurgaon. So I'm typing away, working, and all of a sudden I'm looking at my curtains and they're going like this. And I kind of stand up and I feel almost, like I'd been drinking a little bit too much, but I hadn't been drinking at all. And is it windy? No. I look outside, there's no wind. So for about a minute and a half, the curtains are just going like this, and I think to myself, is this an earthquake? Like, is this the first earthquake? Because I've never experienced one, right? And so I instantly, I go turn on the TV, and sure enough, 7.8 Richter scale earthquake happens on the Iran and Pakistan border. Aftershocks felt all the way to New Delhi. So what I was experiencing was the aftershocks. So again, I'm thinking as a Westerner, well, man, I better get out of this building. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm looking outside, no one's panicking. I open the door, look in the hallway, there's just people walking around. Okay, well, I guess I'll just keep working. And so finally, 10 minutes later, I get a knock on the door. I'm like, oh, okay, it's the hotel staff. They're going to tell me, to leave the building. Instead, I open the door, and he's kind of looking at me, and I'm like, did you feel the earthquake? And he's like, yes, sir. Would you like some towels? So again, perspective-changing moment. If that would have happened here in Minneapolis, most certainly if it was downtown, they would have probably evacuated the building. They would have gotten news coverage. We would have all went home, had a half day after work, and said, oh, we're so fortunate nothing bad happened, right? But in a place where these things occur quite often, and other things sometimes worse than earthquakes, in order to function and to continue with day-to-day life, they have to have a different perspective. So being challenged with new perspectives is a really, really healthy thing. It's how we grow. And I urge all of you to seek out the opportunity to be confronted with perspective every chance you get. With that, I'll turn it over to our Toastmaster for the day.
Thank you, Brett.